A while back, I bought a Ferrari 328, and although the exterior is very nice, the leather interior and carpet are very tired. Today, I used a Leatherique system to return these seats back to a much nicer condition. All right, I've removed the seats by removing the 4 Allen bolts to them all. As you can see, the interior is in great shape. It doesn't have the wear the seats do. First, we'll check our dye on the underside in an inconspicuous space for color and density and see if it's close to what I bought. Just to do some prototype matching, and got the dyes from Leatherique. 2 bottles, allegedly the same, so I just cracked them open, used a little stick to dab it out, and you can see there's a pretty good match. You can see bottle number 1 here and bottle number 2 right there. All right, I've removed the 328 seats from the car, and this is the 3rd application of Rejuvenator. I've had 2 others and cleaned them with Pristine, but you can see that the driver's seat has quite a bit of wear, as well as some cracking on the passenger seat. So to revive this is actually taking 3 applications, and I'm leaving it here in the Arizona sun. So we'll come back later. It is softening up, but it's also revealing a lot of cracks and voids of dye. So it may be softening it up, but it's also making it look just a slight bit worse as the cleaning reveals imperfections in the leather. So after 4 applications of Leather Rejuvenator followed by Pristine Clean, letting it sit in the Arizona sun, it's really softened up the leather, and it's also cleaned it up and removed a lot of the oils. Unfortunately, it has also revealed quite a number of dye wear points in the driver's seat here. And you can see it's not hanging up a fingernail, but it's missing color. And we have the Leather Rejuvenator Leatherique system to bring that back. Now, as you lightly wet sand the leather, you're going to start seeing the actual dye release from the leather. That's what you want to do. As soon as you see some material underneath, stop. But until then, the other thing is, I hose this down frequently, and as soon as it releases dye, wipe it up with a rag and gather as much of that old dye as you can on there, and then come back, liberally spray it again, and then come back and release more. Just gently agitate it. Don't get into the grain, just enough to release the dye. All right, I want to show you that the paint prep that Leatherique gives you actually helps remove some of the dye. Here you have 600 sandpaper, brand new, and dye is already coming off on this. You want to be very careful and not to go deeper than this, but as soon as you see leather, stop descending into it and know that you've broken it up enough to re-dye. As you can see, the dye has gone somewhere. It's on the ground right now. So sanding it is just to agitate the old dye from the leather and separate them. Once you see leather, stop. Do not sand anymore, once you see the dye has separated. So here's the passenger side, and I've completely paint prepped it and taken it down. You can see there's quite a bit of leather showing from underneath, but as soon as I hit that, I stop sanding with the 600, pull back and just wipe it off, and there's quite a bit of dye that the paint prep reveals. So the next stage is filler, and I have used crack filler here on the driver's bolster and wiped it down. I'll do a sand on that, but these areas are high wear points, so it's actually filled quite a bit, and a couple on the seat there. Then we'll come by with 1,000 grit sandpaper tomorrow after these cure and level. All right, the first goes on the passenger side, and you can see colors a little deeper and golden. I did use the foam dauber to get the seams and low points for this first, and it is not a complete coverage by any means, but it is a nice coloration and it'll go good with the exterior color. So it's coming along nice, and it's still very supple, but we'll build the color little by little. This first pass was just for the seams, and you can see the seam colors have changed. They're much lighter. Okay, the seats have had a day to cure after with the sponge treatment, addressing the main stitching on it as well as edging. But unfortunately, when you do that, you can leave a line if you don't get the metal panels also. So after getting all the stitching, I lightly covered all of the center panels too, so you have an actual good color representation. Over in the driver's seat, we put the first touching of it. You can see it's covered a little bit of the bolster. We'll need to sand that, and I found a couple high points here, two wrinkles that persisted through it. You can still kind of see the long run here. We'll try and fill those, sand those, and get those to be looking normal, as well as a couple of deep opening cracks here on the seat also that the dye did not cover for the initial. So we're coming along nicely. I think after this we'll finish some sanding and then go straight to finishing. Yesterday we daubed on the stitching and the edging to cover that with the first layer of dye, and of course you can't just leave a line, so you have to make a light pass through the whole panel with that. We've been letting it cure in the Arizona sun yesterday, and now it's morning again. We're coming back. You can see that you need to tend to post dye, clean up a lot of it. Sometimes you'll see dye has gathered here's one. Well, bring out your 600 and sand that down. The daubing that I used to do this was with a closed cell foam piece and gently pushing it around in a daubing motion. Now it's time to mask off and get the airbrush out and get the main panels evenly colored. This is looking very good, and I see the dye color is a little different, but when we pulled some of the hidden portions off, such as the door bolsters, you can see that they are much different than the light beige that has been 38 years of fade. So the original color is, the dye is actually approaching the original color better, is a long way to say. So after the first pass, come by, wipe it down, and feel for any little pieces. Get them off if they don't come off easily. Use a light sanding. All right, so yesterday we did the first pass, and I used a polypropylene dauber, just a dab, and I soaked the stitching in this area, something you couldn't do with an airbrush without leaving marks, and then you lightly fill in the area with a gray area, but you also get the edges back here so that when you come to use the airbrush, you can just fill things in. These have cured overnight, and now we're ready to start airbrushing. We're going to feel them for texture. If there's any lumps or dirt that got into it yesterday, we'll use the 1000 grit sandpaper to take that down. The Leatherique has really left this to be extremely supple. This is a heavily worn driver's seat, you can see. And that's usually how they wear the driver's seats, usually suffer all the wear and the passengers aren't always there, but this is looking extremely nice. You can see on the driver's side, some of the stitching has suffered some wear. And new dye makes it look nicer, but still it's going to be lingering. It's not going to be exactly like new, but it's sure cleaned up a lot better than when it was. And of course, all the parts in the interior are being dyed the same to match, and it will be as close to new looking as possible. Okay, yesterday we did a little bit of touch up just to cover some dark areas. There's a little divot there. We had to fill in sand there and resprayed that, and it's blending really nicely on this. Wanted to get just enough dye on the seats to cover them and not enough to get overwhelmingly sticky or heavy. So I think we're doing really good on this. I'm going to take a look at the backs and finish some of those. I know getting all four sides at once is tough. All right, I've just finished airbrushing and finished sanding both the backs of these, the verticals. It's difficult to spray anything but vertical. So the seat pads are next. They have a good coat, but I'm going to clean off a bunch of this and get it into a consistent color. So let these dry out a little bit more, then we'll rotate them and put the seats on the vertical to make it very easy to airbrush. Okay, I sprayed the verticals on the final just about 2-3 hours ago. I'm letting it dry on the sun. I'm going to then rotate the seats. These have not had their final sanding, cleaning, and airbrushing, but it's coming along really nicely. Far better improvement than what it was. So looks like tops are done. The back side and these bottoms have yet to be finished. Then we're going to clean up, and what I found is this chrome. I didn't mask this off, but that's no problem. It just peels off like a peel coat. All right, it's the next day after the airbrush. The first application was with the dauber to get the seams, and then we airbrushed all around. It's looking pretty good. I like the color. There are some little speckles and finish areas. This is a driver's seat was so worn before. We could do a little sanding here. I did not mask this off, but it's easy to remove some of the little schmutz here. But I think we're ready to start touching this up and then go straight to curing for a couple days and don't even touch it. But it is starting to look very good and very consistent.